Grange Month's activities here on Zoom. You'll see that we have a whole calendar out, and we hope that you'll share that. Tonight's presentation, obviously, as you saw when you got in, is being recorded. So hopefully you are so inspired that you decide to share this with some of your friends and members and what have you. But we have a special presentation. It's a repeat, but in the best possible way, from the President's Conference, where all of your state presidents got to hear Chris Hamp give us a little bit of inspiration. And if there is nothing else that I think we need to kick off Grange Month, it is that after this long 2 years of crazy. So without further ado, National Grange Vice President, first time I think I get to introduce you as that on Zoom, and I'm very excited, Chris Hamp.
All right, thanks, Amanda, and thanks to everyone taking the time this evening to tune in and to listen to a couple of things that I'd like to share about making our granges stronger and giving us some things that we can put in that toolbox to help us in our daily work. And it doesn't have to necessarily be Grange. It can be everything or anything. But as I travel around the country and as I have conversations with folks just like all of you, it seems like there's often a frustration or a concern that the elephant is just too big. So the workshop that I'm doing tonight is the same one that I did for the delegates and the national officers at their conference a month or so ago in Myrtle Beach. And what I wanted to do with this workshop was to kind of break down the process of making our community granges stronger, of how we do that on a day-to-day basis. And if you've heard me once, you've heard me 100 times when I get talking about Grange and about the future of Grange, it all starts with our community granges. If we don't have strong, viable community granges that are filled with folks that are willing to get engaged in their communities and try new things and feel like they've got the tools in order to go out and to be awesome in their communities, then all of us, all of Grange struggles. And so this PowerPoint was put together to give us some tools, maybe make us think about things a little bit differently in the easiest sense. I don't think you're going to find anything here that's wild and crazy or that you haven't heard before. There might be some new terminology that I'm going to use. We'll explain that as we go. So go ahead, Amanda. Let's look at prepare. So prepare is the starting point. Prepare is what we do when we're getting ready to do anything, right? Prepare, you prepare a meal, you prepare for the day, you prepare for your Grange meeting, you prepare for every event that you want to host. And we need to look at these things in a way that maybe we haven't looked at them before. And we need to add some passion and we need to add some excitement to how we do that. So when I prepare for something, the preparation is like practice, right? And you want to practice like you've never won. Have you ever heard or said that term to yourself before? Is practice like you've never won. In other words, you're going to put everything you've got into it, and you're going to make sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, and you've got every possible scenario thought about, and you're ready to go. The other thing with preparation is to have fearless leadership. In other words, you're going to lead with that attitude and with that expression of, I've got this. You never let them see you sweat, right? That's a term that we use in the fire service and in a lot of places with leadership is, and it's another phrase is that duck on the water. You don't see how fast the legs are paddling, but it's being fearless. And so that's the other thing that I want to impart is coming across like you've got this, and then every one of us can do that. Another part of that preparation is to build resiliency. And resiliency is one of those words that you see and hear more these days, but we're building resiliency for doing what we do. I mean, how many times do you hear a Granger say, or a busy person in your community say, oh, I can't go to Grange Revival in July because that's the same weekend as our county fair. And I'm the only one in the history of our county fair, evidently, that knows how to barbecue chicken, right? And so we've all heard that. Well, it's time to build that resiliency. It's time to find somebody else that you can mentor and that you can teach how to barbecue the chicken so that you can go do something else. It's not a place where we want to have a job for a lifetime. You don't ever want to be in something so long that then you hear the phrase, well, we can't replace them now because, they've had it for 48 years, and wouldn't it be neat if they made it 50? Well, no, it wouldn't be neat. Let's keep those things rotating. It keeps people fresh. It keeps the ideas fresh. It keeps everything fresh about it when you build that capacity, you build that resiliency, and you allow folks to enhance their skills, enhance their opportunities, and to feel like they've got a part of it. Communicate consistently. So when we talk about communicating consistently, or if we just talk about communicating, I think every time we talk about why something or how something could have gone better, I would say that communication is at the top of the list, right? That's the thing that we can always do better on, is we can always communicate better. We could have perhaps sent out the notice earlier. We could have sent the notice out wider to a wider audience. We could have sent it through more channels. We could have used our social media in addition to the newspaper. We could have sent emails. There's always ways to communicate. And then the consistent part is to get it. And I know, if you've heard Amanda or Phil talk in their position as communications director, it's having that consistent message, and one that not only has your byline or your tag to it, but also has kind of the same look. With 5 Mile Prairie, our little signature is our quilt block. And so on every flyer and everything we send out, we have that quilt block. So it's consistent. They're going to look at that, they being the public or whoever our audience is, and they're going to say, yep, that's coming from 5 Mile Prairie Grange. There's that quilt block. And so that consistent communication, that consistent message is going to help us in that preparation. The next thing I have on the list is accounting for human topography. And human topography may be a new phrase for many of you. It's one that, again, you're starting to see more and more if you do any sort of leadership or management research on the internet. If you Google human topography to learn more about it, you'll have quite a selection of items come up. We use human topography to talk about, and everybody knows what a topographical map is, right? It's showing you contours to the land. So it's showing you the ups and the downs. And as you're, planning that hike, it's showing you, if you want to get 1,000 steps in the first 10 minutes, go this route. If you want to be on a level plain, then you're going to go around the mountain, maybe that way. So it's kind of showing you those things. Well, all of us as humans have our own human topography. We have those triggers that if you want to keep me on a level keel, you're going to interact with me in this way. If you want to see me climb the wall and get real excited in a hurry, then these are those trigger points. And so the human topography is exactly that. You're going to account for that. So your peeps, or you're going to get to know your new members. And it's important to find out what their topography is. Is this somebody that it doesn't matter what sort of situation you put them in, they're going to be like that nice, fresh, mowed field, perfectly flat, no landmines in it, and you're good to go? Or is it going to be one of those folks that, that looks like the roller coaster at the Six Flags amusement park, where you've got more ups and downs than you can count? Not any comment about which is good or which is bad. Just the comment is that we all have all of those, right? And so it's important to understand that and to account for that as we prepare. Clarify the when. So that's the other part of preparation, is what are we preparing for? What do we see as the expected and the hoped for result? So as we are, and again, this can be anything in our Grange. This could be a membership drive. This could be a public service event. This could be an annual event that your Grange has done for the last 110 years. It could be the first time that you've ever done an event. But you need to try to figure out what are we hoping for? Why are we doing this event, and what do we want that outcome to be? So we need to clarify the when, because some of your folks, that's what's going to touch them. That's what's going to resonate with them and why they're involved. There's going to be aspects of that when that your folks are better suited. Some are better suited than others to do and to be involved in, and that's gonna help you get that preparation phase underway. And then absolutely be relentless. For those of you that know me, and many of you that are on do, and we've known each other for years, relentless is one of my favorite things. And it's that dog that gets that thing and just keeps shaking its head, right? You are not going to take no. You are not going to take excuses. You're going to make sure that preparation gets you from point A to that finish line, and you're going to get there in good shape, in good fashion. So that's the piece, that be relentless piece. And I don't know if it's generational. I don't know if it has to do with the world that we live in. It just seems like my predecessors, our predecessors, were more relentless, that they were less willing to walk away, that they were more willing to fight for the outcome that they wanted. it's almost like maybe in a lot of ways, society has gotten to where things are easy. Things are easier because of technological changes and all of that. But we're used to things happening quicker. You know, it doesn't take us 2 days on horseback and buggy to get to the Pomona meeting across the county, right? I mean, we're doing it on by Zoom. Here we are. And so when it comes down to a new project or a goal where it's going to take some time, it's going to take some resources, and it's going to take a whole bunch of effort, it's like, meh, people are a little bit meh about it. And so that's the relentless part, is I just don't see anything being successful without having that relentless component. So that's that final piece of the preparation. So before I move on to perform, you're fine, Amanda, that's fine. Is anybody, I haven't seen any hands go up, but is anybody, I guess one still listening, to have any comments or clarifications that they'd want on prepare before we move on to perform?
Patty has a question.
No, somebody's.
Oh. She doesn't have a question.
I just I had something I wanted to say, Chris, and that was, you know, I took from this some stuff about how you can use this for the membership recruitment part. And I really, really liked the idea of the relentless stuff in this. And I think that was a really important thing to hear reiterated, because I think you do have to decide who you are going after, whether it's a specific person or family or type of person. And, you know, it's not about the hard sell, but it's about continuously finding ways to make sure that they know that they are welcome and invited, but that they have a place at the table that would matter for you and for them. And so I really like that last point. I think that was a huge point to make.
And the other thing with relentless is, you know, relentless doesn't have or isn't the biggest, strongest beast in the room. It doesn't have to come from, you know, the person with the gavel that has been elected president of your Grange. You know, that relentless motor might come from the smallest, physically, the smallest person in the room. Or, I mean, often I get the sense that somebody that is new or is little or is old or is young or is somewhere on where they think that they're on a spectrum, can't be the engine that makes the train go, and they absolutely can. I mean, some of the most relentless people I know are the ones that catch you unaware, because there's some fire in that belly that again, that human topography you don't know from just looking at them, because a human's a human, and once you get to know them, then you know what makes them go, and that's the fun part here, is every one of us can wear that relentless tag and do amazing things. So that's the piece here, is it's not where you can say, well, you know, that's passed me by, sorry, I can't be on the relentless team anymore. Absolutely not. We're all on that team. All right, let's go to perform. So I'm going to bump up. So in prepare, we talked about practice like you've never won. So perform is perform like you've never lost. All right. And that's kind of a cool way to think about it as well, is, you know, it seems like as we age, there's less of a willingness for us to perform. As evidence, have a talent show in your junior Grange, and every single kiddo is going to get up and do something, right? They're going to dance around, they're going to play the piano, they're going to sing, they're going to show you a card trick. They have no fear, they have no stage fright, they have no, I didn't wear my best jeans tonight, or whatever concept. They're in it to perform. Now you do that same thing at your community Grange meeting, and how many people are going to volunteer? None, right? They're going to sit there with their arms crossed and say, oh, heck no, I haven't played the piano in 6 months, 6 days, or 6 years, but I'm not prepared for tonight. And that performance piece, or that, and it's the same thing with competing. You know, it's a brain, a thought of either not putting yourself out there to be, you know, to get comments maybe, or put yourself out there to have somebody do better than you. And so I think that's why, as adults, I mean, adult learners and competitors are way different than kids. So this part of the performance thing is, we've got to perform like we've never lost. We have to throw off those socially added on just expectations maybe that make us shy away from performing. So I would hope that that's something that you can take and share and try to do better yourself. I mean, set that goal of, the next time somebody asks me to participate, I'm going to. I'm not going to worry about whether I do it word perfect, note perfect, or anything else. I'm going to do it because it brings me joy, and I don't have to be perfect when I do it. Culture matters in performance. And, you know, you can think of performance as an individual, you can think of performance as a team, you can think of performance as your Grange. And that culture matters. So all of us, whether or not we've been elected president, are active Grangers. And thereby we are leaders in our Granges. And we need to lead by example. And that culture that we set goes a tremendous way. And it's, you know, it goes back to the old saying of first impression, right? And so if the meeting starts at 7:30 and the leader drives in at 7:35, what does that tell everybody, especially new people? Well, it's posted as 7:30, but they don't really mean that. So that's one example. Or, you know, we talk about things with, you know, walking the talk. That's where you know, we need to lead by example. If you want people to participate, you need to participate. If you want people to bring a dish for the potluck, that's what we call them out here in Washington State anyway. I know different states call them different things for the potluck dinner. Then you need to be seen bringing the potluck dish through the front door, right? So there's hundreds. We could brainstorm 100 things of how you can lead by example, but the idea is it's got to be done. And that's one of those things where in the Grange I grew up in, the officers every year had an officer meeting between the time of their installation and the first of the year, when they would put out their calendar and their activity list, and they go through some of this stuff. And I think we don't do that anymore because we're afraid of I don't know, stepping on people's toes. We're afraid of the fact, or we think that, or we assume that everybody knows all of that stuff. And I think that's where we get caught up and in trouble a lot, is we're assuming things that we shouldn't assume. And if you bring it up and discuss it as a group, then there shouldn't be, that fear of running folks off because, you're aiming it at them. You're having this conversation to make the entire group better. And that's how you want to and need to couch it. Is this is important for our team of officers to go into this new year with this slate of activities. And the other way that you lead by example is maybe the March activity that was decided on at the last meeting is something that you don't think it's going to work in a million years, right? And then you could use that old, we've done it, we tried that before and it didn't work. Well, the leading by example part is you've got to put back into that preparation page, you've got to put everything into it to make sure that that thing works. Whatever that thing is, you've got to be all on board. And whether that's the type of event or the color of the kitchen or whatever decision was made, if you've come out on not the prevailing side, you still have to go with what the Grange has decided. And that's where I see more Granges get in trouble, is when, even though the votes happen, you still have two factions of what is wanted, and you've got to have that teamwork. You've got to come together. Perseverance, that's getting over that speed bump. That's looking at the thing and looking at it as something that can be stepped over easily, rather than a mountain that you can't climb. And I'm not going to quote Ritual, but there's a lot of it that talks about perseverance. And we should all be in a really good spot that you should see that bullet and say, we got that one. We know about it. We believe, we trust the process. At the gym, trust the process is up on the wall in about 5-foot letters, maybe. Big, I'm tall, I'm 5 feet. So these are big, tall letters. They're about 5 feet tall. And all right, nobody's laughing. Well, maybe somebody is. So, but it's trust the process, and perseverance is part of that process. You got to trust that when you persevere, and on the next bullet, passion, when you add those things to the drink, when you stir those into the pot, you are cooking up something that is going to be amazing. When you leave out those key ingredients from that performance, not so much. You're going to get that blah. And that's, I'd sit on here all night for 30 days of April and talk about perseverance and passion. And if everybody could exhibit those two things in every day, holy smokes, we'd have to put seatbelts on, right? Because it would be a ride. And how exciting would that be? I mean, that's what I want. Is, it's kind of funny, but I want that. I want everybody to have their hair blown back and, maybe lose a boot in the process. I don't know, but have something blown off and like it. It's kind of like Grange Revival in 2023. Grange Revival is 12, 13, 15, 16 months away. And every place to camp on that piece of property has already been booked. And people are like going, well, now what are you going to do? And I'm like, you know what? This is the best thing ever. Because how often in our Grange lives have we had something so successful that we've had to figure out alternative B, C, and D because the Grange Hall's full, the campground's full, this event got sold out. right? I mean, it happens, and it should be celebrated, and then it should be, how do we do that again? How do we make 250 roast beef dinners and sell them out and mimic that again when we do it 3 months from now? Those are the things that we've got to post them out there, share how you got there, how you're going to get there again, and learn from that. That's the performance part. That performance part is the fun part, right? You've done all this work to prepare, and now you get to perform. Now it's time to make that idea, that dream, that whatever it is, reality. So that's perform. How about thoughts, questions, comments about perform? Oh, come on. This is.
Well, I agree. I mean, passion, you persevere on your prepare slide. You have a word there, and I forget which one it was, but it's close to persevere. Relentless and persevere are so tied together. But then your passion is, if you want, one person can make all the difference. We hear that Grange's, well, so-and-so left and so-and-so moved away. And this is, all you need is one person with passion, and that Grange can be resparked. I mean, you look at Amanda there with Jefferson County, with Jefferson Grange, Jefferson County, whatever it is, Jefferson Grange there in Pennsylvania. One person, she had passion. She wanted to revive that. She had perseverance. And now they showed up with 5 people at the Washington, D.C. experience. So, and now she has a group of passionate people that are persevering and moving forward to have another P word, a prom, coming up here in May or whenever that is, for adults. I mean, what a unique thing. On the Facebook this week, it showed some Grange out west that had it wasn't square dancing. They were showing moving, video. I don't know what they were doing, but it was some kind of dancing. It didn't look like line dancing. It didn't look like square dancing. If anybody else saw that, they were performing for all of us when they posted it on Facebook. Now they were performing for all of us to see, and not just Grangers, but everybody. So this is performance is all kinds of things. It's not just being a showman, but performing at cleaning up the yard, cleaning up a street. And you can go do that yourself if you feel that's in the name of the Grange. You could perform with passion and perseverance to clean up that Grange yard or a local park or whatever it is. So yeah, I love these words that you have here on your slides, and they do all tie together. And I'm sure when we get to Persist and Prevail, there'll be more words that will pull it all together for everybody. So thanks, Chris.
Yep, and yeah, I like your point about the fact that it's not just a performance, but it's the doing, and or at least that's what came to mind when you said that, Joan, was it's the act of doing. That's the performing. And a couple of years ago, we used that tagline of what do we do when the doers are gone, and to be a doer. But the question around being a doer was, what do we do when the doers are gone? And go into a small community's town hall and ask that town hall if they have the resources and the budget to put flags on every veteran's headstone in the cemetery, or to clean up the cemetery, or to, to do the litter pickup down the roads, or, right? Those things that Granges do in those small communities all across the country. And they do because those municipal governments don't have either the personnel or the budgets to do that. And so when the doers don't do them, how does that stuff get done? So that's the question that I'd like to ask is about those doers, and that's the performance piece is the doing, and it's to love the doing. It's to wake up and want to be doing the doing. That's I think that's what drives me every day is just the joy in the doing. All right, Amanda, let's go to Persist. See what we find there. So we have prepared and we have performed. And in a lot of cases, we don't get away with just one performance, right? There's multiple performances that are necessary. And so the persisting comes at that point. And that's where we talk about focusing on the goal and not that obstacle. If you take a driving course, they tell you you're not supposed to look 10 feet in front of your headlights. You're supposed to look 100 yards down the road, right? They want you to be looking for things ahead of you, not that you're already too late to react to. And so it's kind of like those obstacles is if you're looking 100 yards down the road, you don't see the speed bump because you've already should have seen that and reacted and dealt with it. So your focus is on your goals. Your focus is down the path and not on those obstacles. When we get focused on the obstacles, what happens? We get all balled up, right? We get all slowed down. We get all in a knot over who's going to do it. And it's too big and it's too hard and it costs too much money and it takes too much time. And well, nobody wants to deal with it. So that's the piece with those darn obstacles is to look past them at the goals, and then you'll be able to get over them without having that mental block. And that's the point that I have with that one. You don't know what you don't know, right? So that persisting part is to keep solving some of that, what you don't know. So, going back to that human topography point on the first slide, if you've got a new member and they're gung-ho and they want to help in the kitchen and you don't know that, I don't know, pick something, that they had a terrible experience with eggs and they don't want to see another one in their entire life. And you assign them to breaking eggs for breakfast. Well, you didn't know that. And so now you do know that and you can move on. That was kind of a lame example. Sorry about that. But the idea is you got to keep pushing on and you got to keep learning. You got to keep learning your folks. You got to keep learning your community. You got to keep learning your, the outside influences that come in. What's going on out there that is going to make this year's event different than how we did it last year? COVID, right? I mean, we've all learned that we can do things that we never thought in a million years, literally, we would have to do. And we've done it and we've been successful. And we've even found new niches that we can support and get involved with that never would have been on the radar screen in the past. So that persistence of learning and always being a learner, I think is important. And it's another thing that we do less and less of, and we get worse and worse at as we age. Because I think a lot of folks think that I know it all. You can't teach, you can't tell me something that I don't already know. And that's a really too bad place for folks to be, because every day is an opportunity to learn stuff that you don't know, to try stuff that you haven't tried before, and to make that act of doing more joyful, more fun, more exciting, more successful. That's what we're headed for. So grittiness, I think, Joan, that's your word on this slide that ties in with perseverance and the relentless is the grittiness. And you just have to, you got to have a little bit of that. You've got to have, I guess I had one of those dads that when you fell down, you get up and rub some dirt on it. That wasn't just a slogan on a t-shirt. That was life on the farm. That was that grittiness to not let a little setback turn you off or shut you down. It's having that thing to keep going, and that fits in perfectly with those earlier words. But that's part of that persistence. There's a certain, I don't know, it's not an edginess, but it's, you gotta have some of this stuff. You gotta walk in like you own the place sometimes, and that you're gonna be able to make a difference, that tonight's the night that we're gonna put together a program, or put on a program, or do this thing, and we're all in, and it's gonna be awesome. And I just think too many times we don't give it that full thought process, and we find ourselves settling. And settling is one of my least favorite words. If I love perseverance and relentless and grittiness, I hate settling. And I think that's what a lot of us have learned to do, because as our numbers have changed, as all sorts of things have changed around us, we've, rather than adapted and overcome, we've settled. And that would be another thing that would be the challenge from me to you, is to not settle, is to take that group and say, hey gang, this is not something that we can settle for. We've got to make sure that we win this game. This is not, this game's been being played for what, 155, 56 years right now. Not on my watch, not while I'm wearing the uniform is this game gonna end, right? I mean, every single one of you should be nodding your head. You don't suit up to be the last one playing. You suit up in order to build that legacy, to watch the next team wear the uniform and to succeed. How many people watched the women's final on Sunday and the men's final last night in college basketball? In the audience, they kept going back and back and back to previous players, to alumni of those schools that are still wearing the colors, but they're in the stands now cheering on that new team, to get this same experience they had, to have that same experience of being a national champion, of having that same experience of being a Grange member in your community, of watching kids' eyes wide open when Santa comes into your event in and has every one of them sit on his lap and tell him what they want for Christmas. I mean, that's what we suit up for. We don't suit up to be the last one. We suit up to hand that baton off. And so that's that grittiness and the small steps of, in the past I've talked about, and if you want to write something down, write down the daffodil principle. And Google the daffodil principle when we're done here and read that little story. It'll take you, 3 minutes to read it. And then email me or text me or do something and say, if that thing doesn't hit a chord with you, I'd be surprised. I mean, I love that thing. I read that thing all the time. I'm not going to read it tonight or wreck the surprise, not surprise, but wreck the newness of it for you if you don't know about it. But it talks about small incremental steps and how those small incremental steps do make a difference. Those incremental steps change the world. And that's that piece that we've got to keep talking about is how those things change the world. And then the last one here is don't stop until you're proud. And if that event or if whatever thing we're talking about here, if there's things that you could have done to make it better or things that you could have been more proud about, keep working on it. Keep polishing it. Don't just throw it out and not come back to it, but keep working on them. All right, Amanda, let's go Prevail. So prevailing's that last step. Prevailing is the win, right? Prevail, if you're on the prevailing side, you've won. And so that's where this whole thing is taking us. So those small steps, that little by little, all of a sudden, a little becomes a lot. And that's what you're going to read in that daffodil principle and find a way to incorporate that concept into Grange. Okay. That's what I want to hear about. That's what I want to see on your social media feeds or submitted to Amanda or Phil for the patrons chain or for the magazine is a story about how those little incremental steps got you from here to here. Things that we can share with our fellow Grangers across the country and give them the hope and the process for how to do that. This is one, even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. And the thought with that is some of us do the same event month after month after month. Maybe it's a pancake feed, or we do it year after year after year. Every Easter, we do the same thing. We do an egg hunt. And maybe 50 years ago, that egg hunt was the greatest thing since sliced bread in your community. Well, nothing's changed in 50 years with that egg hunt, and maybe some things need to change. And that's the point, is you can find a winner, but if you just leave it alone, you're probably not going to keep it at that same high performing level, right? So that's the part of, you can't just get complacent and sit there and let it just work on its own merits. We've got to keep, how do we tweak it? How do we make it better? How do we make it stronger? How do we get more people interested? And that's the part of, the old resting on your laurels or whatever phrase you want. That's the one. Those incremental steps, I mean, there's a lot of people that want to know what's at the top of that staircase, and you don't always know. and you can't know because each step is going to take you maybe a little bit different place. And so you've got to trust that process, and you've got to know that the only thing that's important is you just keep taking one step after the other, and those steps have to be connected. You can't get from over here to way over there in one step. So it's not like you're going to get all the way down a rabbit hole without figuring that part out, because it's just one step at a time, right? So don't get bogged down in trying to figure out where that last thing is. It's that step by step. And I know that earlier I talked about being able to clarify the when. And that's a little bit different. You can clarify the when without knowing exactly how you're going to get there. So step by step. And then the overcome adversity. That's another piece of this prevailing part is, you know, I think it was Joan that mentioned it. Somebody, your mover and shaker moved away. I just had that happen in our local Grange. A mover and shaker family moved 200 miles away for work purposes. And now we've got to come up with a way to fill that little void that we've got now, right? Or big void. But we've got to overcome that adversity, because our Grange and all Granges are bigger than just that one person or that one family or one anything. It's all of us collectively. And so whatever that adversity is, we've got to figure out how to overcome it. And one of the things I know, there's more and more big, hard issues out there facing our Granges. There's issues about halls and how we maintain old buildings and how we keep them up to code. And sometimes the answers are huge dollar figures, and it's overwhelming. And I tell you, the more that I talk to folks that have those issues, I am all in on being compelled to figure out how we do better at providing answers, at how we provide tools and examples and how we do that. Because the goal of this whole thing is to keep charters on the wall. It doesn't matter what these 5 slides talked about. Chris's goal is to keep charters on the wall. And every single thing that your Grange does, that my Grange does, that all of our Granges do, has got to be to make sure that that charter stays on the wall and the next team gets to wear the colors, right? I mean, otherwise, why do we do this? And so that's the part that I'm excited to look forward to, is to start looking at some different ways that we can help, different ways to get those tools into everybody's hands. So what is there? There's 13 in Illinois and another 6 or 7 people, let's say on a 20 people max tonight. We need to get this into not 22 people, but 22,000 people's hands, right? I mean, everybody's got to know what those tools are and has to know why it's important to keep this thing rolling. So that's the purpose of tonight's workshop. Those are the four P's, and I'd like to see if we've got any thoughts or comments.
Chris, I have to say that I've been talking a lot about mentoring over the past year and a half to people. And some of the stuff that you hit on here kind of goes with, if you're mentoring somebody, it's getting them infused with that passion and giving them all the leeway to take those steps and to say, we might have always done it this way, but if you see a path forward that deviates, I'll stand behind you because I am mentoring you. I trust you, and I think that that's a super, super important piece too, to take this stuff to people that you might be mentoring or working with, and knowing they are the next ones to wear the jersey. I mean, we're all wearing the jersey, right? But they're the next ones to be putting the sash with it, so just, I think that there's a lot of pieces in here that go with a lot of the things we've been talking about.
Absolutely. No, and that's it. I guess it's, it's a product. I'm a product of my upbringing and that competitive athletic background and experiences. I like to draw on a lot because I think it's the ultimate team stuff. But at the same time, that's what Grange allows us to do is for those of us that no longer do put on a jersey for an athletic team, you do put on the jerseys for Grange, and you have that same camaraderie, you have that same, sometimes I know in our county here, our members come in and say, hey, we saw this other Grange doing that. We gotta pick it up a notch, right? So there's a little bit of competition that goes on, which is always good. It makes all of us better. So that piece is for sure. And yeah, the mentoring piece, I mean, that's a whole nother night that I'd love to spend. But we've got to give those folks the approval, so to speak, to try that new stuff and go down a different path and to take those steps and all that kind of thing. So
one of the take-home pieces for me was on your prevailing your persistence slide about looking at your goals and not focusing on those obstacles. And I think you really hit on that with, you're really invigorated when you're looking down the road to, what those goals are, but you can really get bogged down and just kind of lose all momentum and traction, when you focus in on those obstacles. So that was definitely a take home point for me. And then on the last slide, as you were kind of going through that prevailing, one of the sayings that came to my mind was, Nah, I just lost it. Oh my gosh. Oh, here it was. It's never. It's like never. Oh my gosh, I lost it again. Never mind. It'll come back to me, and I'll get it to you then.
Text. Okay. I didn't realize that was you. You were hiding under your black screen. So
yeah, getting the kids ready for bed.
I'm honored to have you on. Thanks, Rob.
Yep.
Can I give a shout out to Bethlehem Grange?
Sure.
We just celebrated our 148th birthday 2 weeks ago on the 17th of March.
Fabulous. Congratulations.
Thank you. We're working on our 150th. The whole interior is being repainted. The outside hopefully will get repainted. And our youngest member is 33, but our average member is 70 to 85. And we're the active bunch.
Okay. Well, good. So the 48th was a little practice run for the 50th then.
148.
Well, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
What
No, we
state,
celebrated
what
every
state
day.
are you from?
New York State.
New
New
York.
York State.
Yeah.
Yep, Selkirk, New York.
Yep.
A quick note, Chris, I saved your PowerPoint as a PDF and I put it in the chat for anyone to download. This will be available, this whole conversation tonight will be available by videos tomorrow or the next day for you all to share with other people. But in the meantime, if you needed a refresher or couldn't write that fast, that is available in the chat to download. Also, there was a question in the chat from Wendy Coombe who said, how do we get the old guard away from the idea that we have never done it that way before? And boy, is this a question that we hear a lot, Chris.
Yep. I know it's a frustrating one because just when you get done talking about we're all on the same team and you know, a win, you know, is, or to identify what that win looks like. And then I hear stories where our own folks, you know, it's kind of like, you know, mothers in the wild that eat their own young or something. It's like, why do we do that? And there isn't a good answer. And unfortunately, it's frustrating how much it occurs out there. I think, you know, it goes to the persistence, and the scary part is there's a lot of folks that I know say it's not worth the time. I'm not going to go back when I'm treated that way, or that I'm not allowed to participate in. And you know what I want to say, and we'd probably need to shut off the editing part here, but you know, if you've got that going on, and you always reach out to somebody else that you can, that's maybe near you, that you can have somebody come, and maybe somebody from another Grange, or a state officer, or a national officer from a close state or something might be able to come to an event, or have a conversation with somebody and do this. I mean, if this sort of discussion in a smaller segment was held at something that they were at, maybe you can get across an idea or two. But and I'm sorry, and that's, I don't have a great answer. I wish I did, because there would be 1,000 charters on the walls that aren't there anymore, because I know that's what drives folks out, is not having the opportunity, and people just not being nice, and I don't get it.
I don't know. I think that you are right in saying, you know, hopefully someone else can also come in and set a tone. You know, and I hope that our state ranges, when given the opportunity, can come in and encourage folks that it's really important that, you know, at a certain stage that you are mentoring the next generation. You are the one who can be lauded for helping the next folks be able to step up, but it's now time to take that mentor role and I don't know if that can be done without having almost the state leadership in this case come in and kind of make some of those expectations known. But we know that may not be where they are in what they want to be accomplishing in their term, because it doesn't sound nice. It doesn't sound great to say, okay, Carol, you know, you've been in charge of Bethlehem Grange for a number of years, and it's time for someone else to step up so that, you know, it doesn't die with you. And no one wants to hear that. You know, Carol and I have known each other forever, so I could say that she knows that I'm being more rhetorical than anything, but nobody wants
my goal is to hit that 150th and party our year out. and go for 151.
You know, the other piece too, and I think I just caught what Rob had, because I had something good and it just floated right out of my, oh, I know what it was, is the last Good Day magazine, the piece on the final word that I wrote, which really rang true to me with what happened in November with the election. I did not go to Wichita, Kansas thinking that I was going to leave there and not be lecturer of the National Grange. And that's what happened. And so whether you're expecting it or not, things change, and you need to be prepared to all along is to prepare your successor, and to understand that those positions are not ours. You know, we're the custodian for a short period of time, and you know, just just look in any of those history books, and it gives a long list of these have been the past officers, whether you do that at a national, a state, or a local level. You see all the presidents hanging on the wall. And so that's part of that too, is there's a natural progression, and those Granges that do that without there being a battle or having somebody die in office are our strongest Granges, because there isn't a fear, or that or people don't feel like they're being picked on or whatever else when they get voted out, because they know that they've done 2 or 3 years, and it's time to go from president to chaplain and over to lecture, and to move it around to keep things fresh and to keep your Grange strong. And I just cringe when I hear somebody say, I've been secretary for 40 years. And I want to say, not congratulations, but sorry. I mean, who wants to be secretary for 40 years, right? I mean, that's the part of trying to change that culture and make that culture one where everybody's comfortable moving around and knowing that you'll come back to it. I mean, okay, so I was president when I was 32, and maybe, I'll be again somewhere in my 40s and in my 50s. There's nothing wrong with that. So
I think oftentimes we also talk about what the past was in the organization, but we don't talk about some of the things that in the past might have helped us get past some of these issues, like the way we've always done it, which included some of the officer training and the schooling, the officer schools, of different things that we used to put on, because some folks fall into positions, and because I know no one else in the room has had any formal type of instruction, whether it's at their state level or regional level or whatever it is, they feel like no one else can do it. And no one else feels like they can do it either. And maybe looking to some of our past for some of that stuff wouldn't be a bad idea either. Because I think, if nothing else, at those type of meetings, instead of singling out one Grange for not having turnover or one Grange for doing something, you can be saying exactly what you did. You are just the custodian of the seat right now, and and we're getting you ready, but there will be someone else sitting here in 5 years. And the more you hear that, it's not a shock or a a dismissal of any sort when you're not reelected. It's an acknowledgement that this has to have fluidity in order to have future.
Absolutely. Yep.
You know what I always hear every time something comes up, a state Grange president will say, well, Carol, Bethlehem always does things different. They always have. And the thing you have to keep in mind is none of us have been Grangers. I've been the longest now with 13 years or 14 years. The rest of us have never, ever been Grangers before. So we kind of missed all that early youth training and everything. So we're on our own. We're just kind of winging it here.
Mm-hmm.
We've learned a lot, and we've learned a lot of stuff we can't do again.
Yep.
But we keep trying.
That's right. No, that's that grittiness, is keep trying. The other thing.
Well, some of the old time people were like, we wanted to do a craft fair, and everybody in the old guard was like, oh, no, you'll never get away with it. I got to tell you, our 4 craft fairs a year are phenomenal hits. Our 2 plant sales a year, everybody was like, oh, that'll never work. Yep, we'll be working our butts off the next 2 months getting all these routings going and cuttings, because I was a little slow in putting the press release out, because my computer and my printer do not want to communicate, so I couldn't get anything printed out or put out on Facebook. So in fact, that's why my husband's down there working on that, and I'm on my cell phone.
Okay.
Rob said that the phrase he was looking for was never arrived, always becoming, by the way. And so I wanted to just share that from the chat if you all haven't seen it.
Never arrived, just
Always
becoming.
become.
Always become. Oh, we're
Rob,
always
what do you
becoming
got?
in our Grange.
Yep.
What was
I'm
that, Amanda?
recruiting a former Grange member that's 80 years old from an old Grange that he quit from and has been a friend of mine for 35 years. And I'm working on him to recruit him into our Grange.
Rob, where was that phrase from? Never arrived, always becoming.
I was listening to a podcast and it came up and it just like resonated with me.
Love that.
Yeah, that's good. You know, the other part, Amanda, to your point about learning from the past, perhaps is a repetition thing. I mean, I grew up going to Grange as a small child, and back in the day when the 4 degrees were done throughout the county multiple times a year, as was the 5th degree, and so as every Grange did the full opening and closing ritual every night, and my parents were involved at a level where we traveled and visited other Granges because of positions that they held, and so I probably heard the ritual a couple of times a week, right? I mean, you heard all those charges over and over and over, and that's why, you know, many of us recite along when somebody's giving a charge is because it's up here that you heard it time and time and time again. And a lot of those things that we heard were these words. I mean, these words that, I mean, those things of, you know, the work of another day demands our attention, right? It's those concepts and those thoughts that come from our ritual that we used to hear over and over and over, that just became part of us, and we don't anymore. And just, you know, but I think that's part of that is our newer members don't have the opportunity to hear many of those same phrases and have those indelibly engraven on their minds. I mean, that's another phrase from the 5th is, you know, marble crumbles into dust. But you just, you know, I think that's a part of it as well, is trying to share. And I think your heirloom program is going to do some of that, as it brings out some of those quotes, and it gets newer members maybe familiar with some of not just the who we are, but the why we are. And I think that'll help that part. So that's what.
Don't see any other comments in the chat, except Wendy is glad to hear that she's not alone. And Wendy, I'll tell you that you are really, really not alone. All right, so I don't see anything else in the chat, Chris. I know that
Wendy, I was just going to tell Wendy, I put and for all of you, I put my Grange email address in the chat. If you've got specific issues that you'd like to talk about, or if you want to share with me how those small incremental steps change the world in your community, I would love to hear from you. So don't be afraid to send me a message.
I know that it's closing in on 10 o'clock here on the East Coast, and Chris's supper is probably already cold, but Dwayne's a good guy, so he'll heat it back up for her. I don't want to shut us down too early, but I know at 10:15 Eastern, so 7:15 Pacific, that our Zoom is being used by a Grange who needs it on the West Coast. So I do need to make sure we wrap up by a certain time. Thank you all for joining us. Chris, thank you for sharing everything with us.
You said this is all going to be available in print where we can download it?
It'll be downloadable as a video. The PDF for Chris's PowerPoint is available in the chat. You can download it, or I can make sure that it's also sent out with the video notice.
That would be excellent, because I can't download out of the chat.
Okay. And I saw, Joan, you had a hand.
I just want to remind everybody of all the activities that are happening this month for Grange Month. And there's tomorrow night, there's a video conference just like this one at 8:30 on long-term care and estate planning. For none of us on here are too young or too old to not have thought ahead on estate planning. We have a lawyer, an elder lawyer that will be talking with us, answering all your questions, as simple or as hard as you want to make them. Be sure to think about what questions you have about your will or health directive or power of attorneys are so important. And he can answer some of those questions. So join us tomorrow night as same bit.ly at Grange Month. No,
Grange Month Zoom. I'll put it down the bottom.
yeah. Tomorrow night, same link as tonight. There it
I was
is.
gonna ask, are you gonna post
At
that
8:30.
on
And you actually just covered what I needed to cover, Joan.
Oh,
And
okay.
I-
Sorry.
I appreciate that. No, don't be sorry at all.
Facebook page
Sounded
as
like you were
well.
going away, and I wanted to make sure I got in a commercial.
Nope, you're good. We are gonna close up here just a minute. I just wanted to also remind you, if you have somebody who's joined the Grange, especially for you state secretaries in the room, that has come in over the past year or two when they've had not the normal Grange experience, please encourage them to visit our new member Zoom next Monday night. That's also on that calendar. We will answer questions and chit chat about general Grange stuff, and share and enjoy each other's company. And nobody will ask a stupid question, because there are no such things when you're coming into Grange and you really have no idea what you're wrapping your arms around. So please encourage any of your new members to attend that. And then, as Joan mentioned, tomorrow night we have one of these and a couple other throughout the month. So we look forward to you all joining us again. Phil will be out and hosting most of those, but tonight he's being a good Granger and he's at his local Grange meeting. So we can all appreciate that. And if you guys have any questions for Chris, she's obviously put her contact information, Hamp at grange.org. If you need to remember it, it's champ at grange.org. In the chat, Phil is available with P. Veneta at nationalgrange.org and myself at membership at nationalgrange.org. And we appreciate all you guys for joining us, especially the giant crew from Illinois. A huge shout out. Thanks so much. Good night.